And we're back.
We're back. Hi.
Hey, it's been a while. I so apologize in advance if we're a little bit rusty, but Xanthi, it's always great to see you. I know it's been a while since we've been on air. So how are you doing?
It's been a while. I'm doing well. It has been, summer holidays. We have been off. We took both of us a break from the streaming, and now we are trying. I'm back to work, trying to get back on track and adjust. And I know that you're also in the same situation, more or less.
Yeah.
So we're trying to adjust to reality.
Exactly. Between vacation and some us just getting ready to get back to work and just being reacclimated to streaming. Yeah. So it's a lot to juggle. But it's always a fun time to be able to go on here with you and really excited with the guests that we have today. So I'm not gonna yammer jimmer jammy too much longer. Our guest from the Kessel Chat with Jeff Bull and Ryan Rose. So I'm gonna get our special technician to warp them in here. So
right.
Yeah, hang on. Hey, R2.
All the tech.
Hey, R2, can you hear me? All right, I'm gonna zoom them in. Can you hear me there? Hang on. All right, let's try this again. R2, ready? Okay. Hey there.
Hello, you guys. How was the trip? How was the ride?
That was amazing.
Yeah.
It felt like 12 parsecs.
Yeah, we had a little problem with the warp jump there, but I guess as well as audio, like I kind of joked about. But yeah, we thought we had a little of a bit of space surprise there for you guys. So welcome.
Nice.
That was awesome. Jeff and Ryan to the show. Today we figured we'd bring on the experts. Of course, no problem. So we figured we will have a Star Wars chat. And of course, we wanted to bring experts, the gurus, to give us your insights and maybe interrogate you a bit. No, sorry, interrogate might be a tough word. Interview you and ask you some questions because we have questions. But so yeah, welcome. Tell us about you guys. You have a show. Tell us a few words about your show. What do you do?
Go for it, Ryan. It's all you.
So we are, of course, Jeff and Ryan, Jeff Bull and Ryan Rose, or as sometimes I like to say, Horns and Thorns. We host a show called the Kessel Chat. We've been doing that now for a little over a year, and it's a lot of fun. We actually started working together on this because we're both huge Star Wars fans, and we both, I think, also come at Star Wars in different ways, whether it's the movies or video games or television shows or comic books or novel series. Each of us has our own history and our own connection. And so every single week, it's one of my favorite things. We always talk about how the weekend starts on Thursday because the Kessel Chat is every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific. And we get to jump into subjects like last night we talked about the new Andor show and how you can get ready for that. But I would say the Kessel Chat is a lot of fun because not only do we talk about Star Wars, we talk about a lot of other things like storytelling, the fantasies and sci-fi that help to inspire Star Wars, and even things that we're looking forward to, whether it's Star Wars shows or a number of other things. Like I'm a huge fan of Star Trek, as you can tell behind me. But Jeff, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I tell this story periodically about how the Kessel Chat even got started. And Ryan's right. We actually started we started working together actually at work, and I had wanted to start doing a Star Wars show or something of some kind. And after doing like 2 live streams on my own, I'm like, this is kind of fun, but it's kind of not fun by just yourself. And I don't know what happened, but I somehow got to Ryan. I'm like, Ryan, do you like Star Wars? And you're like, yes. I'm like, do you want to be on the show sometime? And so we jumped on, and we after a couple episodes or one episode, he's like, hey, I'll come back anytime. I'm like, great. Tell my wife about it. And what it turned into after a little bit was like, dude, just be on the show all the time if you want to. And for me, at least, what it kind of turned into is we don't live that far apart. Like I'm in the East Bay near Oakland, Ryan's in Sacramento. So we're only like an hour and a half away from each other. But during the pandemic, we couldn't physically get together because it wasn't safe. And so this gave us at minimum at least one night a week that we get to hang out and just talk about something we absolutely love talking about and get to do that every single week. So it's like it turned into this kind of a way to foster a friendship when you like you're working across time and space and like a couple parsecs in a pandemic. This is how you get together.
Nice. That's a great story, and that's my first 2 questions. You answered both of my questions, which is what made you start the show and why did you select Star Wars? Great introduction. And I know, Robert, you have also questions. We have more questions. We want to dig in a bit more. So we start with the generic and maybe go into more specifics. But Robert, I got my questions answered.
Yeah.
I know you have questions. You take it. And I think we have some technicalities, or is it only me?
No, it's me.
No, and it happens. That's actually like the beauty. We have this on our show. It happens. It happens often enough. But what's great is that we're always super excited, whether it's a show like we've experienced technical difficulties or not. But we just like love talking about this stuff. And what was really cool is the last time we all got together and meet before we were hosting this show. It was great to hear from you all how passionate you all are about these subjects and what you bring. I always love to ask whenever we have people on our show, and I'd love to hear from you all. What are you both the most excited about? Like, what's the thing that's about to come out, or the thing that maybe is already out that you're like, oh, I love this, or I can't wait for this?
In the Star Wars universe?
Oh, it can be anything. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know that there's I can't wait for Star Trek Lower Decks to come back. I can't wait to see the Rings of Power show. I know that there's a lot of controversy about it, but hey, I'm gonna be checking that out. Sandman is a show that I know that Jeff and I were talking about last night. So there's a lot of really cool things that are coming out right now. I always love to know what are you excited about?
Wow, I was not prepared for that. You got me here. But the Sandman, I say it on Netflix, and of course I want to watch it. And it's funny that you said about Star Trek, because I was watching your show that you had, that it was Star Wars and Star Trek a few episodes before, and I didn't see the whole episode, but I could relate so much with all the things you said, because I was watching, I was like Jean-Luc Picard in that era, and Commander Riker and all of those.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And but what am I waiting to see now? So there is something I forgot now, because you got me off guard, if that's the expression. But
oh yeah.
I know, like one of the shows that I was interested, and I think I know, like you and Jeff had mentioned it on your own show. You talked about Andor, just that it's just like they did with the prequels with Star Wars. It's funny where Rogue One was like in between, like what happened with the prequels to the main Star Wars film. You have a prequel of Rogue One, which is kind of like the bridge of the 2 different trilogies. Just be kind of interesting to see how that comes about, especially because like the tonally of how that's being treated. It's a lot fascinating, just because when they first came out with Rogue One, I forget if it was you or Jeff had mentioned about how it had elements of like previous films, like it had like nice the Dirty Dozen vibe. It's like the I'm gonna mangle the pronunciation of another film, like some of the Kurosawa films, just because like that have that
Yeah.
of that. So I'd be interested to see how they're gonna treat that series. So that's jumped up to top the list, as well as whenever the season 3 of Mandalorian will kick in, are two that immediately jumped to my mind.
Right on.
Well,
Good
I
deal.
can mention what we talked briefly before in the pre-show about. I'm late to the party. I just showed to the first episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I really liked it. It was the first episode, and I really liked. Besides the story, I really liked the aesthetics. As I said to Jeff, it was very cinematic, and I really liked that. It was not a TV show for me. It was like a cinema experience, even though I saw it here at home, of course. But I can say that I was impressed, and I'm looking forward to see the rest of the series. I will just binge watch it. Yeah.
We were talking about this. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. I know I'm having some weird video delay or whatever, so hopefully you can hear me okay. But okay, great. But Xanthi, it's interesting. We were talking about this briefly in the pre-show, and I know Ryan's got a lot of input on how these shows between The Mandalorian and others were filmed and how that makes them look on camera. In addition, one of the things that was really interesting about The Mandalorian is, and I'm blanking on the name of it now, but the structure that was built and the system that was built in part to film The Mandalorian also made a huge difference in how it visually looks. So I forget the name of the room, but it's this big room they built inside of a studio warehouse or a studio building that allows them to, and this is something that ILM created. They put it up, it allows them to put up all of the background of the in the same way that they move the background imagery. So when the camera pans around a character, the background imagery can follow that. So it actually does. It makes it feel like you are in a fully immersive real world. How they film it and how the actors can interact with that environment at the same time without having to go on set someplace. And for me, at least, I've noticed that makes a huge difference in how what you're seeing on screen when you're watching on your little screen, a TV as opposed to a movie theater. It feels like a more cinematic or a more engaging experience than TV shows in the past have. And there's a variety of reasons for that too. And I know Ryan's got some thoughts on it, but that is, I think that's actually changed the game a lot for the more modern Star Wars content, because it allows them to create what really is a much more immersive experience for the actors and then for us as viewers.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, oh, please go on ahead, Xanthi.
So since you guys seem to know a lot more, was the same method used in Obi-Wan Kenobi? Was it the same shooting, filming?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they did something similar there. Although I'll say this, like, I really do like a lot of the look of the Obi-Wan show, but I honestly would have loved that to have been a movie. Like, I would have loved that to have even more money, to have, and even like at times, like I felt like, man, I wish that set was bigger. Like, or I wish that they could have had maybe more extras on the set. It worked out really well because they piloted that with The Mandalorian. And so they're able to get these like kind of digital backdrops that are happening. I always think about how Star Wars is always pushing the medium forward. When the original Star Wars movies came out, they created that kind of computer controlled camera work, which is what made the special effects look great. It's also what made stuff look better than like ships on wires flying by. But what's really cool is like when the prequels came out, the biggest special effects movie before the prequels came out was Titanic. And Titanic had 900 special effects shots. And at the time that had like never been seen before. And then when episode 1 came out, it had 2,000 special effects shots, like blew everything out of the water. And Star Wars changed movie making again. Like then it became like, oh, you could have blue screen backdrops. And now with The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan, they're able to do this digital backlot. And you see that now. It makes it really cool. The actors can actually interact with it, which I feel like makes better acting. Like I think at times in episode 2, they're having to act against like a tennis ball, and it's like, yeah, that's gonna be something. That's gonna be a giant monster. Whereas now they can interact against something and know that they can see it and act against it. So I think that also gets a higher quality of show. But yeah, like I really love the look and feel of this. I just wish that they would add even bigger budget for Obi-Wan. I would have loved to have seen that been even bigger, and get even more of that going for. But you can see it in everything. Like even the new Star Trek Strange New Worlds, that engineering set is that digital backlot. Their shuttle bay is that digital backlot. And it's so great. I mean, I could be sitting in front of one of them right now, and who knows, my black lion here from Voltron, that's part of the digital backlot. But yeah, I love that technology. I think it's so cool.
I like it that you have so many insights and information. It's good to know. I didn't know about those special effects, Titanic versus the first prequel. So that was cool to know. But Robert, I know you have also some questions.
Yeah, I think we touched about this earlier. I know. It's just, I apologize, everyone, where I'm kind of like
trying to
doing
fix
mission control.
the technical.
Yeah. Oh no, and it's the nature of a live show, right? Like Jeff and I often have to give demos, right? And we always talk about, man, I hope the demo gods are kind today. Because it's always when you're live, and then it's like, oh, and now that doesn't work. It was working 5 minutes ago.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's par for the course. It's like how it works.
Exactly. But no, I think it was just like to an earlier point, and I don't know if I would say it's a hot button issue, but I always wonder, because every time they come out with, whether it's a new program or new movie, that you can see like difference in the special effects and the graphics, and I always wonder if the difference is enough that it might take away from the viewing pleasure, whether maybe subtle inconsistencies, or something maybe a huge that's hard to ignore. I can think of one example. I think we talked about earlier, where I don't know if I would say controversy, but like when they just released the prequel. I mean, the first trilogy of Star Wars, when they saw Yoda, and he looked a lot different in episode 1 than when you saw him in episode 5 and 6. So I mean, when that first happened, I mean, that take away from your viewing pleasure of watching the film. I mean, for me, the big difference to me is like, I just noticed that he had more hair back then, but I thought because he was younger in the earlier films.
He's like what? He's 900 years old, right? He's 900 years old, and when you see him in Empire. And by the way, like Yoda and R2 are my favorite characters. Like R2 is my all-time favorite character. When R2 zoomed us in, Robert, I was so excited about that. I like that Xbox came out and it was R2 decorated, and I was like, I gotta get it. But Yoda's like a character that I never doubted the puppet. Like I was like, oh, that's just a real thing. Yeah. And so when they brought in the younger, the 20, 30 years younger Yoda, and he was kind of like bigger. He's he's looking like he's been eating a lot of that soup on Dagobah. He's got like slightly longer hair. I thought, I don't know if I needed that. I don't know if I recognize this character, but I will say, like, they good for them for trying different things. But I remember when episode 1 came out, that's always, I think, a hard balance, is like what to change and then how much special effects to use. I think in episode 1 they actually had a pretty good balance. I think in episode 2 they actually kind of went a little bit overboard. Like it seemed like everything was a special effect. Even down to, I don't think they ever produced clone trooper armor. I think every clone trooper armor from episode 2 and 3 was computer generated, outside of a helmet that Captain Cody holds. But otherwise, Jeff, I know you've got thoughts on this too. Like seeing the youngerized Yoda in episode 1, and then also that balance between how much special effects do you use, how much do you make it practical effects.
It's interesting. We've had this, Brian and I've had this conversation, or a variation on this discussion, many times. There's two parts to it for me. The first one is, I'll be honest, I am the type of person that when I walk into seeing one of these movies, especially Star Wars, but a TV series or animated for the first time at home, I don't even notice any of that. Like literally, I can't. I could not tell you. Would have to go back and say, how did I miss that the first time? Because my brain is so excited to just consume the excitement of this new thing in Star Wars that those semantics just kind of like disappear for me the first time. I don't even notice it. When I come back and watch, usually because I'm watching not with a critical eye, but I'm looking for things because I'm curious, I will start to notice them. But for me at least, they never it's rare that they ever take away from the viewing experience. However, and this is the other side of that coin. Ryan and I've talked about this multiple times. As much as I love special effects, practical effects I think are huge. And I think just as important as practical effects are things like Peter Jackson and Weta kind of coined the term. They like to use the term bigatures when they were making the Lord of the Rings movies that were miniatures, but of varying large scales. So even though they had a miniature, it may be not a tiny scale, could be 15, 20 feet tall. It's still technically a miniature of, Gondor or of Minas Tirith, sorry. But it's like tall, but it's still small, and they called it a bigature. And I think it was interesting because they were able to use in those films, as an example, they were able to do camera shots with this bigature that was still a practical effect. You're practically filming a real structure. It just happens to be in a smaller scale than real life. You don't have to build a big full life set. And I think there needs to be, for me at least, there needs to be a balance between when do you say this is where computer generated type graphics fit the best, and where can I either do a practical or a real set or a miniature / bigature to have the viewer not see those things. Because at the end of the day, you don't want the viewer to notice those things, because when you notice them, that's when it takes you out of the experience. Because as soon as you notice something, it's that glass breaking moment. You're like, now you can't not notice it anymore. And that's not what you want someone focused on. You want them to focus on the story that they're consuming. And so for me, it has to be, it's not even a balance. There's a rhythm that you have to find as a filmmaker. I think when you're creating these things, or a TV show creator, it's going to be different for every piece of content. But I do like a mix. I'm with you, Ryan. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, for me was just like, even the first time I saw it, I was noticing the graphics right off the bat. I'm like, I'm still enjoying this, but this is very clearly like 90% green screen. And it was obvious. Like you could notice that the green screens were there. It wasn't hidden well. And I think that's where it becomes a problem, because you don't want someone to be taken out of the story because they see something.
I have to admit that I characterize myself as the casual Star Wars fan. As I said, I don't know, that bounty hunter that is in the cantina, what his backstory is, as many do, because all of them, even though they appear for half a second, they do have a big backstory. But as a more casual Star Wars fan, I never thought of it like you describe it. Like, okay, we saw episode 1, and for me, it was natural that it would be more special effects because it is newer technologies. So it didn't took me. I was not disappointed. It was like, okay, Master Yoda how now has more detail. Of course, you can see more of Yoda. It's not just a puppet. But for me, it was like expected. That's how I never thought of it like, but that's very interesting.
I've always Xanthi, I actually agree with you. Like, 'cause I'm always cool when especially when there's like an old show that's been updated. Like a really good example is if you go back to 1960s Star Trek, the Klingons guys and like a lot of heavy. I mean,
Yes.
and it looks crazy. By the way, they look.
Yes.
Yes, they look crazy. The makeup is crazy. Nothing makes sense. Then, Star Trek becomes a movie series, and the Klingons look, and the sets and the ships look amazing. And like the Klingons get their like, their head ridges, and they become this like warrior culture. And but the look, everything changed. And I always, and to Jeff's point, like it's always that balance. It's like sometimes if you go a little overboard, then it might be a little crazy. But I think that it's totally okay for any product or any like story to do that upgrade. Because I think you get, I think otherwise, I don't think I would be cool if the Klingons from 1960 were the same Klingons that we saw in 2022. Like I'd be like, oh no, we gotta shut this down, guys. Like this does not work. But yeah, like I always just think it's that balance. It's like how much are you gonna do? How little are you gonna do? I love that when you get that good mix of practical effects and special effects. It's kind of like The Force Awakens to me hit it just right. Like there's people there in giant masks, but then there's also some really cool digital effects, like flying the Millennium Falcon through a Star Destroyer. I mean, it's like I loved that. And that's only something that's really is possible to get that level of detail now. So yeah, Xanthi, I'm with you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
What do we
But
ask
I would,
next now? Yeah. Tell, please.
well, I was actually going to ask you all because I actually have a
Yes.
question, and it's something that came out of when we were meeting, and it is because we're a Star Wars show. A thing that we'll often ask people is, "What's your favorite Star Wars? Like, what's the thing that you like that's in Star Wars? Even if you're a casual fan, like, what's the Star Wars that you like? Is it a movie? Is it a show? Is it a video game? Are you crazy for Shadows of the Empire?" Um, uh, we always love to hear that as well. And then I know that Jeff, he's got a favorite Star Wars. He even has like I think some multiple tracks of favorite Star Wars. But it'd be great to hear from you all. What do you all love on Star Wars? What's your favorite Star Wars?
Oh, Robert, you wanna answer first?
Well, I mean, I think we talked about it earlier. Well, I mean, I started to get hooked on with the animation programs. Like I know they had the Star Wars shorts with when they started to introduce the Clone Wars, and that was pretty cool. And then
Genndy Tartakovsky.
Yep, big time. I was hoping Samurai Jack would pop in, but that'd be a weird crossover. But
big Samurai Jack fan. I love that.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I love the artwork in there. So when they started to move on to like what I said, long form cartoon, it took me a little getting used to the slight change in the animation, but I mean, but the storytelling was right there, and so although it was kind of sad to see the Clone Wars to go away, when they brought in Rebels, I'm like, I'll give it a shot, and I slowly kind of got hooked onto the characters from that series. So to see them, I guess I should say,
and by the way, like Jeff, I'm sure Jeff noticed this. That is not the Star Destroyer klaxon. That is the Enterprise Red Alert. And as you can tell behind me, I'm like always trying to balance. Yeah, I'm always trying to balance my Treks and my wars because I am a huge Trek fan. Like you could even say, Xanthi, you could say that I'm a casual Star Wars fan in comparison to how much I am a Star Trek fan.
Oh,
like,
okay.
This is true. This is very true.
Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing. I think I can name a Star Trek episode within the first 10 seconds. And it's this is not a skill I'm proud of. I wish I could pick stocks. I wish
like
I could do something else,
all of the Star
Oh
Trek
yeah,
different
huge.
seasons and different series?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh
That is a
yeah,
skill.
yeah. Whether it's no, but I'm a huge Trek fan, so I love. Thank you for using the red alert, Robert.
My pleasure.
But no, but I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue.
No worries. I mean, to add to it, I mean, I'm a big nut when it comes to Easter eggs. So, like, I know I'm starting to veer off from our topic, but when they introduce the Strange New Worlds and how they're starting to introduce elements from either episodes that already happened, like a slight nod, like for them to bring back the Doctor that was used sparingly in the original series, Doctor Mbenga, to hang on.
Oh, there's another spoiler here. Oh, we lost your audio.
The red
no,
alert.
no.
The red alert canceled out your audio, dude. It's like no, Robert.
You're not
no
allowed
spoilers.
to speak. It's too much of a spoiler.
It's that big of a spoiler. It's that big. I'm like, I can't wait to know what this one is because I'm a huge Strange New Worlds fan too. What was the other Easter egg that you saw that you really liked?
Oh, no audio.
Oh
Until you
no,
fix
no
your
audio.
until you fix your audio, well, I have something here to show you guys.
Oh, I love that.
I need to flex. Sorry, I have to flex. And to just give a short answer until Robert fixes his issues. My favorite when I think about Star Wars for me is the first three movies, of course, because I'm a kid of the 80s, and when I say Star Wars, the first image that comes to my head is, it's not a good one, but it is Princess Leia and Jabba the Hutt when she's a prisoner. That's it for me, Star Wars. That's that. That is that era, my childhood.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was summertime, of course, and I was at my aunt's because my aunt, she had a VHS, and then I went to the video store, and I was renting films, and of course I was renting Star Wars, and I have this very vivid memory of me going downstairs to the store, taking the Star Wars films, and it was the last no wait the Return of the Jedi, and watching it and having that imprinted in my brain, and yeah, in a good way, I guess. I mean, it's about story. No, Robert, we still don't hear you, so I will just keep talking. So
Oh no.
but that
Jeff
is my
and I
Star
have
Wars.
Jeff and I have similar stories, and I am also a child of the 80s. I watched Empire Strikes Back on a VHS that was taped. We taped Empire off of HBO, and then
Okay.
it was a tape that shared Empire and Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock, and I'd watch Empire, and then I'd watch Star Trek 3,
Star Trek,
and
perfect.
both the middle chapters of their respective trilogies, or if you want to say that's 2, 3, and 4 of Star Trek are a trilogy. But I was just like you, like those rewinding those tapes and watching them over and over and over again. It's like a big favorite childhood memory. As much as I love all this new stuff that comes out, my bread and butter, the thing that I go back to, is always those original movies. And I know that Jeff, you've got kind of a special place too for that.
Yeah, so we're all probably roughly about the same age, and I think it was 85 or 85. I would have been 6. I think my dad brought home. I don't think it was technically called A New Hope at that time. It was just called Star Wars. But he brought home the VHS of the first of Episode 4. And I had no idea what it was. He just said, "We're going to watch this movie tonight, Jeff." And my mom and my sister had no interest. What did you say?
Nothing.
What did you say? I missed it.
No, sorry. I just said episode 1. Or the first. The first. Sorry. Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
So we watched. I remember watching this, and at the end of it, that first movie is a complete movie. Like if there was no other movie that came after that, it's a complete movie. It's a beginning, a middle, end, and when you get to the end, it's concluded. If there was no second movie, okay, it would have worked out. And I remember watching that I remember watching that and thinking to myself, and I asked my dad, I'm like, wow, that was so good. He goes, don't worry, Jeff, there's more. I'm like, wait, what? And he said, there was, there's these other movies. I'm like, oh my gosh, it blew my mind to even think that could be a thing. And I just still remember that. I don't remember the movie, and I mean, I remember watching it with my dad. That's about all I can remember. The first house that we lived in. I don't remember a lot of the semantics. I just remember that we watched it. I don't think I remember the actual movie until like 12, 13 years old when I saw it again, that I remember the movie, but I remember that we watched it together and how I felt about that scene. It was so cool. And then, of course, from then on out, every time we'd go to the movie store to rent a movie, I would try to rent that movie, and it was always like, oh, sorry, they have the beta version, but they don't have the VHSs out. And we were like, dang it, because we're a VHS house, not a beta house, so I can't get that movie. The problems that we had back in the 80s. Half the movie store being Betamax, half the store being VHS, and like, oops, sorry, if you don't have that one, you don't get to rent those movies.
But I don't think I can relate to that because it was videotapes, and it was all, you had different types of videotapes.
Oh yeah,
so
I
remember
you had
that.
the VHS,
Okay.
the VHS style tapes and the Betamax style tapes, and they did not work in each other's. It was like
Machines.
the early CD style days, like where like it doesn't work in this style, but it works over here. You couldn't physically put a Betamax cassette into a VHS player and vice versa. They didn't work. And so but because there was no standard, the two things were always competing in those days. And so if you went to the movie store, most places rented both VHS formatted videos and Betamax, and you could only rent the one that worked that you had. And if they were out of yours in VHS or vice versa, even if they were on the shelf right there, it didn't matter because you physically couldn't put them in the other player. So it was a tease for kids because you're like, but I want to rent it. It's right there. It's like, sorry, little Kyle, you can't rent that thing because it's in Betamax.
Yeah.
You want to rent Rad for the 400th time? Sorry, you can't watch Rad again, the BMX movie, which I was obsessed with. Like,
wow, Jeff, like deep reference, dude. Rad. By the way, if you haven't seen Rad and you're a huge fan of BMX bikes, solid movie. Movie.
Robert and Xanthi, this is what basically happens on the Kessel Chat. Is it's sometimes the Star Wars chat, and oftentimes it's also not the Star Wars chat at all.
Okay, yeah, but that's fine. That's how it should be. Actually, if it doesn't become like that, then it's not a good show. And
absolutely. I want to see.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to see because I think I heard Robert.
Yeah, I was just had to use
we can hear you.
Source of audio. It's one of those,
we have so much technical issues. We have Robert that we cannot hear. Jeff, we can hear you fine.
Yeah,
but it's a little
but Jeff's video's delayed. Yeah, but I will say this, Xanthi, I feel like we're in sync. And that's working out. But the thing that I love is sometimes I'm talking, and because Jeff's video is delayed, Jeff starts laughing, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like I said something really funny. And then I realized that isn't the case. That's not the case, that Jeff's laughing about something else. And I'm always like, oh, gosh darn it. I thought I made a good joke there. Or I'm saying something serious, and I see Jeff laughing, and I'm like, oh, man.
Oh, Ryan, it's even more confusing. No. Sorry, it's even more confusing on my side because my little confidence monitor from VMIT from the window that we're in my upper left corner is perfectly in sync with me, but my video on the screen is totally out of sync with me. So I'm like, I'm still talking on screen apparently. I'm watching myself. I'm drinking some soda over here, watching myself talk. I'm like, wow, what am I saying? This is amazing.
That's a legendary show.
It's all good.
It will stay in history. So yeah,
it's all good.
I was thinking Xanthi, if I go to a yes, sorry.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
No, want you ask something? Ask me or.
Yeah, the action figure that you had a Leia action figure, and I will say this: it is a poncho from Jedi. That's actually I find that stuff so hard to find. Where were you able to get that?
Well, my boyfriend, who is the biggest Star Wars fan, he has been into Facebook groups, markets, Star Wars markets. Okay. boyfriend, is it okay if I say everything? I don't know if he's watching now. I told him he should be watching. So he has been a collector. So we have had that for years.
Oh,
He has
wow.
been trying to find stuff on eBay, on here in Swedish markets, abroad, whatever. I'm not really sure where he got this one. It must have been eBay 2-3 years ago. We had the 12 stand. We don't have it anymore because they were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there are collectors out there that are willing to buy stuff for a lot of money, and so yeah, so he's always digging and searching and finding stuff. I mean, we got this. Speaking of controversial earlier, I mean, we got this, and I told him we get this, and we're not. I'm not. This is mine. I'm not going to sell it. This is going to stay here and unopened because we don't know when we're going to be able to find it. And at the same
Oh,
time,
yeah.
when he ordered that, he had also ordered the Black Series, but it was exactly when the incident happened, and we never got the Black Series.
Oh, that's
It
too
was
bad. Like,
canceled. Yeah.
yeah, we're always I'm always trying to like add to my collection. Like I have a couple of things that I really like. I don't know if anybody's got favorites of stuff that they have, or
Yeah.
anything that it's like, oh yeah, see, that's your favorite. That's awesome. I will say that like these aren't necessarily collectibles, but I love like local artists. I love when we're able to support local artists, and these two paintings actually that are behind me, they came from a local artist that's here inside of Sacramento, and I was able to pick these up, and they're impressionist versions of the Millennium Falcon, and then also the Enterprise D. And I always love though when people have like really cool action figures. Like I've got a Boba Fett action figure that's just off screen right here, and it's one that I really like. I've got like my 1980s die-cast Voltron, because I'm a huge Voltron fan. As a child of the 80s, I'm a huge Voltron fan.
Of course.
And
Yes.
yeah, and so, but I always love knowing like the things that people have that they're really proud of. You've got some really cool stuff that's back there too. You've got like the stormtrooper, and which is really cool. And I know that I think we all had like pop. Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Wait. Okay. I'm going to flex a bit. Sorry. Ryan, we can take over. We leave those two unsynced guys out of sync, and we can take over the show.
We're driving forward. Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think we got all of the
that's awesome.
what are they called, blockheads, the Lego. So
yes.
I thought
oh my gosh.
We can hear you now, and we have that. But this is the new solo, like, and I'm okay, but and then Kylo Ren. So yeah, it's.
Oh, that's so cool.
You see the detail? Do you see the? Let's see.
Oh yeah, that is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
See, like I have things like that, and then I also have it's funny because I'm just grabbing my stuff here. I have things that I always love is right. I got my little Pops Mandalorian. Like so I wanted him without the helmet because he never takes the helmet off. And and then he's got the Grogu, which I really like. I loved the Mandalorian. I loved the show. Oh yeah, exactly. It's like it's a 2-in-1. So I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm totally going for it. But then, so I am a English major. Like my background is in English literature, and so as a special gift someone got for me a long time ago from the Tudor Guild is Star Wars as written by William Shakespeare. And I don't know if you can see this, but also you have Darth Vader
it looks
like kind
Shakespearean.
Yeah, exactly. It's very Shakespearean. It's William Shakespeare's Star Wars. And what's great about it is that even the artwork that is inside, they're all like of the appropriate era. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
colors.
it's wonderful. And again, it's even broken up into acts. And so I love like little things like this too, where I get to kind of like merge my two worlds. Which is I love like old literature and look at this. This is the Death Star, the explosion of the Death Star. I be able to get
Oh,
like yeah, literally the old and new together. So I love stuff like this.
we have two
But yeah.
posters upstairs that are like not official merchandise in the same sense from some artists on Etsy.
Oh, nice.
The prince, what is it? What is that? It's Han Solo and Princess Leia in. I cannot explain, but it's like half their face and a very vintage style, kind of.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow.
it
That
is
is
very
so
cool.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
I always love like finding local artists. Anything that we can like. Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
I just
That is
sent a
really
message to my
cool.
boyfriend. Can you bring in this cantina outside? Let me just go a bit.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say this, like, my house is filled with too many things. I keep bringing in a lot of stuff. Collector by my nature, so like, especially when people are traveling like all over the world. Like I have posters of different movies that are all set in different languages, because I love that. I love the way that movies are marketed all over the world. Like the
Mm.
Star Wars poster that was aimed in Japan is very different looking than the Star Wars poster as it was in the US. And so I always love that kind of stuff. So I try to collect a lot of those things. I just actually got a Empire Strikes Back poster that was set for, I think it was Korea, and so South Korea. And so the all of the font stylings is all in Korean, but the image is totally different, and it's all centered around Yoda. So yeah, I think it's great. It's great to meet fellow collectors.
I think we got Jeff back.
I am back, and the delay is still there, but it's not quite as much as it was before. I don't know what's going on. I actually rebooted my Mac just to make sure that it wasn't something else, so I don't know what's actually going on, but that's okay.
It's a legendary show. It's going to be written in history, today's show.
It's legend.
Yeah.
It's like legend. Wait for it. Legendary. There we go. I am. So I've got a lot of. I was listening to all of you, and I was excited because I'm like, I don't have as many as I'd like, but I have like a ton of, bobbleheads are kind of. I can't get the light to be quite right there, but lots of bobbleheads and stuff that I like to collect.
And it looks so cute in that form.
Right? He's got like a scary cute. I can't get enough light right here so you can actually see Darth Maul's face totally well. But yeah, I love the Funko Pops. A few years ago, my wife and I went to LA, Southern California, where my family lives, and my son was super young at the time. So we took one afternoon or evening at stayed in a hotel in downtown LA because she and I had never done that before, and we were trying to figure out something to do after dinner. And we were looking around, and somehow we came across a listing that said, "Hey, in Hollywood, nearby where we were at, there was a Funko store." I'm like, "Oh, Funko Pops, great! We'll go buy some bobbleheads." Little did we realize that the Funko store that was there is a Funko museum, and it's like 8,000 square feet, and it's a retail store. But they have all these corners built out in the place that are sets, like for Harry Potter and Jurassic Park and Star Wars and like every all the MCU movies, Wakanda, whatever, all built out in the like rooms built out and structured with physically large Funko Pops, like 8 feet tall Funko Pops in places, so that you can walk through and actually see all these different sets, and you can buy the Funko Pops and backpacks and swag and stuff in the place. And we walked in saying, you know what, $30, that's the max for both of us. I'm fairly certain we were nowhere near that max. It was very excessive what we ended up buying when we were there, but it was fun because you get to walk away with little things like this that you won't find on like Amazon, that at least not at the time, that were super cool.
Yeah.
For me today, it's that and comic books. I got boxes and boxes down here ever since Star Wars: The High Republic, which is like a new era of storytelling in Star Wars, came out about a year and a half ago now. I've been back into collecting comic books again, and like that's my thing again, which is so much fun.
By the way, 8,000 square feet is 743 square meters for us here in this side of the world. If someone is watching, yeah, I had to Google it to a converter to realize how. But that's a big store. That is a huge place. Yes, that's big. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But I always feel like we're fortunate because there's a lot of really great comic book shops that are around us, and like as Jeff has pointed out too, like we're not just like we're huge with Star Wars. We love Star Wars, but we're really big fans of kind of I would say like almost all things fantasy, and it's a thing that we almost inevitably will talk about. But I think the thing that Jeff and I really like is great stories. It's why Jeff and I are regulars at our local comic book stores. We both have like pull requests at our local comic books. So we love like, great comic stories, great stories of any kind. But I think we're also big lovers of movies. Jeff, I don't mean to speak for you on this, but I think that we are, if you can't find us online, you probably find us in front of our TVs or in a theater. Or a nose like buried in a book. Jeff, what would you say to that?
Yes. That's all I got. What Ryan said.
I love it.
No, he's totally right. It's finding that for me, actually, lately, it has been everything Ryan just said. Comic books, especially because during the pandemic, and once things got to a place where my local comic book shop felt comfortable opening, even if they safety protocols, only so many people in at a time, masking, all that, started to realize that there is a community here that I could become a part of that I had never really thought of before. Even when I was in high school and buying comic books back then, I didn't see it as a community. I thought this was just a place that I would buy merchant. Oh, Jeff's name works now. That's okay, Robert.
Okay.
I thought this was just a place that I went to buy something. And now I'm realizing these are people that I actually want to talk to. There's other customers that I can talk to and engage with and have fun with. And what it's also led me to realize is that, like, for example, I'm on TikTok and I love making Star Wars TikTok videos. And there's a whole community doing Star Wars TikTok. And I've realized that, wow, I can actually be a part of this community. A lot of us have now followed each other and we're all mutuals. And sometimes we just make videos for other mutuals. And you post something and everyone jumps in to help you out or what have you. And it is, as Ryan kind of put it, it's not just Star Wars in this case, but it could be Wheel of Time. It could be Lord of the Rings. It could be Game of Thrones, whatever your thing is. It's the community that is actually, at least for me, so much more interesting. Like they're the people that I get to share this with regularly, regardless of our individual opinions about one piece of content or not. We get to share it with each other, and that's amazing.
Yeah. I'd agree.
That is so cool. And if I may say something, I think all of us in this, all four of us, I guess, you might agree with me saying that we are grown up, adults of a certain age, but this whole fantasy, science fiction, Star Wars, Star Trek, all those nerdy fantasy world has kept us young, right? Like I feel still like sometimes when it comes to those things, I still feel like a teenager or young adult or yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree. It connects you back to your childhood too. It brings those memories back. I agree with that very much. I know that too. When you have kids, and I've got a ton of them. I have 5 kids, and we have 5 kids because we didn't want to have 6. We didn't want to have 7, so we had 5. We didn't want to have 6 or 7, so we had just 5. That's always my joke, but in reality, it's that we have all these kids. We have I have kids that run from 14 to 4, and sharing this stuff with them was also really nice. Like when my oldest daughter, for example, was Princess Leia to every Halloween for years. I mean, she was Princess Leia for her first Halloween through I think her 5th or 6th Halloween, and watching those things with her was also something that was special. Like when The Force Awakens came out, I went to that movie with my daughter. And then she was Rey for a number of Halloweens. But even like being able to show my 4-year-old sons, they were able to, they've only ever watched Star Wars, and we just showed them Empire. And when Darth Vader says, Luke, or doesn't say Luke, he says, "No, I am your father." My son couldn't believe it.
Alert! The spoiler. Sorry.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, run that red alert. Red alert, everybody. It's a 42-year-old spoiler. But if you weren't aware, it's a big deal. But I will say, like, my son was like totally taken aback by that, and just like couldn't believe it. And it was like watching those movies all over again. So I think they keep you young, but it's also so great to introduce them to your own kids. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've noticed that with my son. Like I've tried to get him to sit and watch the movies, the original movies and all that, but he doesn't have the patience to watch the movie. My son just can't do it.
I can
but
relate to that. Yes.
But the shows, like The Mandalorian, he got super attached to, Grogu or Baby Yoda. And so he loves watching those shows. Can he watch an entire episode without like moving around and bouncing around and stuff? No. But and at first I thought that was the measure, like, oh, he must not like this because he can't sit still. But then the next 3 days, all he does is talk about everything he saw in that episode. He's talking to it about kids at school. Parent teacher conference, they're like, oh, he's great in school, but all he talks about is this one thing. And so it's clearly having an impact on him, and he's enjoying it. Ryan, I took a page out of your book. He loves Pokemon because of some friends at school. So I got him to start watching The Last Airbender, the animated series. And while he can't sit through it very long, but then he talks about earth bending and water bending and things. And I'm like, see, I haven't gotten to watch much, but he remembers it. And this stuff has an impact on him. I'm like, okay, I've just got to take what I can take from the 6.5-year-old.
Yes. I was going to ask you, how old is your son? 6.5?
Yeah, he'll be 7 in November.
Okay, mine will be 7 in September, and I never thought of watching Mandalorian with him, to be honest. But I'm gonna try it.
He's. I would say it's probably not for every kid. And I'm not saying that my kid somehow is special, but like it's probably not a story or a series of stories that's okay for every person or every kid. I thought it might be okay for him. Like, let me try out this first episode. There's no real violent. There's a little bit that happens in the very beginning of the episode, but it's not a lot. And he's seen stuff like that before, and he's also very inquisitive. So he's like, yeah, and he'll ask me questions every step of the way. And sometimes if he sees something, he's like, "Daddy, we don't like guns, do we?" I'm like, "No, right, we don't. Like, that's not a thing we like." But then he asks me questions about what's happening and why it's happening, and then he seems to be kind of okay with it and understand a bit of the nuance. Well, as much as a kid his age can understand. So for him, at least, it has mostly worked. But I know that there's just as many kids who probably wouldn't be okay with watching that, not because they're young, but because what happens on the screen could either be too confusing or could be scary or any number of other feelings. So I would not just generally recommend that for anybody. I tested the waters a little bit with him. My son also gets very distracted easily. So he may be like, watch 10 minutes of it and go, cool, I'm good. I'm going to go do this other thing that I want.
Yeah. I mean, well, my son, he watched the Bumblebee, Transformers, and he was like, yeah! So I guess he can take some action. So I can try it with him. Okay.
That's awesome.
Robert, how is your audio?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. You want to come with a question? I have questions, but
I'm trying to.
Or do I take?
Oh no, I'm just trying to make the question concise so that the audio goes out. At least the question will go out.
Yes.
No, I can't help but think, because like with each different age ranges of where people lie, maybe would be the key as to what holds a person's interest. Because I remember, like, when I first saw Star Wars, I was more interested in the ship battles or anything, and didn't really get into the plot and everything until I got much older and didn't appreciate the intricacy of the story arc and just the character development and stuff. So I don't know. I can never know if it's more of an age thing that may be attributed to what holds person interest, than opposed to like if a story is well told that it hits all demographic. I mean, that was just my thought. I don't know if that's what you think in general.
I mean, yeah. When I was watching Star Wars as a kid back then in the 80s, I didn't really understand much. It was just like funny characters shooting each other, spaceships and lasers and, lightsabers and fun stuff. Of course, it's later on that you get the story. But if we stay a bit to the kids, I guess it's a mainstream question, especially for parents that are Star Wars fans and their kids are growing and becoming older and older. I was thinking, what do I show him first? Which film do we show him first? Because in my head, I want to show him the first ones, and by first ones I mean 4, 5, 6. But we started watching, of course, now episode 1. But it's a long movie. We said, okay, we give it a shot. We see how long he will last. It was not that scary, but as Jeff said, he gets distracted, and after a while, he doesn't want to watch it again. It was fun with Anakin that he was on the motor, like the race. That was fun. But it felt wrong. My body said no. He said, "What's the originals?" Originals. Not everything is original, but you know what I mean. But do you think that it is a kid nowadays, 6, 7, 8 years old, their first, if they have never seen nothing Star Wars, what would you recommend they start with?
Oh, I mean, if it's just Star Wars, I would say if they're just starting out, the thing that I always showed my kids as they were getting older was Star Wars. And I will say that I did when they were a lot younger. I skipped past what happens to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. In fact, my 14-year-old was just like, wow, like they just disappeared from the movie. And I was like, yeah. I mean, when it was, or I'm sorry, when she was younger, but then when she was older and she actually saw the whole movie, she was like, hey, you've been skipping past that part all these years. And I was like, yeah, of course I was. I don't want to scare you. But yeah, I would just say, I'm a big 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9 person. I say original trilogy, prequel trilogy, sequel trilogy. So
Like
start,
we experienced it.
Exactly. I feel like that is the genesis of a really great story. I would say start with as I grew up calling it Star Wars, which is I know A New Hope episode 4, but start with Star Wars. I know Jeff, you've got some thoughts there too.
I think starting with that movie is a great place to begin for anybody. And like I said earlier, because it's a complete movie, if you only ever watched that film and you don't watch anything else in Star Wars ever, I think you'd be completely content. You'd walk away from it going, oh, that's really cool. And if you're like, I'd love to see more of that, great. But the movie ends, as I said earlier, really nicely. It ends with a clean, this is a beginning. There's a great hero's journey. It concludes. The heroes sort of win. Yay, fanfare. And that's it. And we can just be good with it. And I'm not saying there's not struggle and trials and tribulations, but it's a really good, complete movie. I would also say if somebody does want to, they're like, that's not really my style. I maybe want to try watching something more modern, more, new and newer. I actually really would suggest watching Star Wars Rebels, because I think it's a really good mix of campy humor, some silliness and fun, while also being serious, and in the animated form can make everything feel a lot lighter. Because even the dark moments in an animated series, at least these style of animation, are not dark like you would see in a movie or a TV show. They're not that kind of dark. They're heavy enough to convey a message, but they can be great for kids, young adults, middle grade adults. It doesn't matter. It can work. And if you watch Rebels, you get a good sense of what Star Wars is like. There's a little Jedi action. There's a lot of people and human elements and, relationship dynamics. And I think that can really help. But aside from all that, if that type of content in general is not, there are so many comic book options you can go pick up and read one comic, really inexpensive, from your local store, or rent it, check them out from a library, read one comic book and be thoroughly entertained. I mean, you want to spend money, it's like $4 US. You want to go to a library? Most libraries have comic books, and you can go pick one up and just check it out and sit back and read it. They have trade paperbacks, graphic novels, sometimes even digital versions you can check out. those are a great option too, because there are other types of nuanced stories you can get into that don't have to be the movies and TV shows. That is, I think too often it's conflated that Star Wars is a movie or it's a TV show. It's like Star Wars is a set of stories told in different mediums for different types of audiences and different types of consumption. It's totally up to you how you want to consume that content.
Right. You're still moving. What you? Okay, sorry, joke.
I think it was just doing some pantomiming.
Yeah. Okay, but I have way more questions, and it's all fun chatting with you guys. But I don't know, how many hours do we have left in our day today? How much more can we keep talking? But it's so much fun to hear another perspective from more experienced, or you guys, you really live it, not live, live it, like experience it, and you have a great show. And I do recommend people that are watching us, you go and find the links. We have all the links in the description. Follow them, subscribe, and watch them. Is it every week? Your show is a weekly show?
Yep, every week, Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific, and our show usually lasts about an hour. And we always have a topic that we start with, and sometimes we drift to other things. But it's been an absolute pleasure
like
joining you both. Oh yeah, exactly, like Star Trek. But Xanthi and Robert, thank you so much for graciously inviting us onto your show, and hopefully we can come back again. And we'd love to have you on our show. But yeah, thank you so much. Like, this has been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you both so much for having us.
Just it's always great to be able to have you guys. I mean, I love how you take the a well-beloved a franchise and just look at it at different angles, whether it's from family perspective or from the medium itself and just the storytelling. So it was a no-brainer to have you guys come on. So it was a joy to have you, and as well as to be able to share a lot of laughs and a lot of bloopers and a lot of good chat. So just thank you for
and technical issues.
Exactly.
Yes.
So just to appreciate you guys coming on.
Exactly what Robert said. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and it's going to stay in history, this episode, with everything we have been experiencing today and all the great time we have had. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone in the chat, people that have been watching us. Make sure to follow all the links below to follow us everywhere, and we see you around in the interwebs, I guess. Jeff, Ryan, again, thank you so much. Robert.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. And thanks everybody for joining us.
I'm not going to let
Thank
R2
you,
take
guys.
over. I'll take the helm of the ship. So we're going to warp out of here. Thanks for watching, everyone. And Jeff and Ryan, we'll have to do it again soon. And I'll try to figure out how to squash the little gremlin. In the meantime, thanks, everyone.
Hey, bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.